something about Jackie B. And Duane, I know you can. I may have to cut you off here, but I know you can have a word or two about that. So I think everybody knows a lot about Jackie B. But Duane, let's hear a little bit about Jackie B.
Okay, Bob, thank you. I couldn't wait for somebody to mention him. He was doing it himself, but I have to tell you before I talk about him that I mentioned I've had many blessings come my way in my life. I don't know why, but why me? But he was one of them. He was one of them. He was foaled right there within a half mile of where we live, and I was on the guy's place. He's an old feller that had him, and a good friend, and if I had time when I went by there, I'd stop and say hi to him, and he'd do the same. He came into the elevator. But anyway, when he was a day old, he said, come down. I just stopped there in his yard, say, hey, come down to the barn with me. I went down there, and here was this dark coat, looked black, that was trying to get up. He looked like he was as tall as the mama. And anyway, that's how it all started. We started wrestling. It turned into kind of a game about getting him bought. It lasted for 5 years. I finally got him bought when he was 5 years old. I had bred some mares to him, and I had some colts by him. I had an idea of what he could do then, but when I first saw him, there was no reason for him to be that good a breeding horse, other than he did have a good sire and he had a good bred mama. But he was a good, and he became one of the leading sires of the breed, one of the legends, and sired 1,009 foals, I believe, and had up around 8,000 AQHA points on his get. The thing that I have most pride in is that most all the stallions through the years was either halter horse sires or performance horse sires. And if you divide his points right down the middle, it's just almost exactly the same, halter half and performance half. And that was always pretty much my idea of what it took to make a quarter horse, a horse that was supposed to be good and conformation correct, all the things it takes to be a halter horse. He seemed to sire, and the type of horse, when he came along, when he started, the type of horse has started to change. The halter horses had been smaller and thicker and different bred, and here he come all kind of cold bred as far as some of the studs were concerned. And his foals were bigger than what was being shown, and they were, in fact, there for a while they got to where they practically judged with the yardstick, and that wasn't necessarily good. But anyway, his colts satisfied the demand, and we had success in selling them, so we increased mare numbers over the years, got up to 100 brood mares, and sale every year. And finally, I could see that the end was about to come for him when he was 28 years old. He had probably settled his last mares. He settled 3 that year. And then towards fall, started to look like that he was done for. He was having health problems, and I had prayed that I wouldn't have to put him to sleep. And come a week before the sale, Orville Burtis, I think, was like third president of the American Quarter Horse Association. He had passed away, and his funeral was in Manhattan. So while I was gone that day, Joe and I went to Manhattan to Orville's funeral. Got home late afternoon, and he had just died. And I didn't have to put him to sleep, and he had done everything right all his life, and even dying, I didn't have to watch it. He took care of himself. So that's pretty much the story of Jackie B. I could go on and on and on about individuals that he sired, the people that are happy with him. I still run into people. I got one sitting right here in front of me that's got one, and a nice horse, isn't he?
She's got one of the prettiest geldings in the county, that's for sure. I can vouch
Yep.
for that. So, yeah, Duane, he was very good to you, and he was very kind to you at the end to go that way. So, Brent, I would like to ask you to, don't stop thinking about your questions out there, but Brent, I'd like to ask you how the reining horse world has changed. You won the Derby in early 2000s, but it had changed a whole lot before that, and it's changed a whole lot before this. I will expand a little bit. My daughter we used to go to the Youth World shows, and she would sit in the reining class, and she watched 70 horses to see 2 or 3 or 4 that would come in and slide. Now, not only the reining horses slide, but everything else does. But anyway, would you address that? What's the change been in the reining horse industry?
Well, I think the change is, Denny and I were talking about that earlier. And Denny used to show reiners too, back when we all first started. But it's changed in the fact that we're breeding them to be reiners anymore, more so than used to be the ones that, that wouldn't halter or wanted to go too fast to be a pleasure horse. Said, this is kind of hot, he'll probably make a reiner. Well, that's about the exact opposite of what we want for a reiner. We don't want a hot one. We want one that's got some feel, but quiet. The ones that you can put a little heat on and they take it and respond. But the things have gotten so specialized in the horse world. People have used to be all around horses were the thing that what we were all looking for. And I'm not saying it's good that we've changed from that, but it has gotten a lot more specialized, and breeding them to be just cutters or be just cow horses or just reiners or just halter horses. And I think we're doing a little bit of a disservice there to the breed because we're breeding a little bit of the structure out of some of our performance horses. But that being said, there's no doubt that the reining has gotten so much more technical. I mean, for lack of a better word, I guess technical, but they're just more physical. I mean, the horses, if they don't run down there and really get on their hocks and stay in the ground for 30 feet and crack back over their hocks and turn around and then lope off with their head down, in a relaxed manner, turn around to blur and then lope off quiet. It's just the things that used to be so difficult for our horses to do are becoming a little more commonplace now.
As some of you might know, my craving was kind of the rope horse world, and I would say that the reining horse world has changed the rope horse world, because these guys that are showing world championship horses at the World or at other places, JD and not necessarily Bobby, but a lot of those guys are taking some of these reining horses that didn't quite make it as top reining horses, but they've got all the foundation for this fancy move of a slide and this turnaround and things like that. And that has affected the rope horse world a whole lot.
Absolutely. I see that when I go to the quarter horse show. I like to watch the judge roping because they're like they
there's some pretty fancy horses out there, aren't there?
Get on the butt to slide. Yeah, really fancy.
And that's a little different than the jackpot world too, in some cases. Any questions out here? CA, I would like for you, in your introduction, you didn't mention your time. I believe you were the general manager of the Melissa Rounds, or the Rounds Ranch at Wichita.
MBJ.
And MBJ, and Mr. Impressive and everything. And then I would also like for you to address your entrepreneurial skills, Western heritage, and if any of you back a few years ago bought any Western equipment or Western tack, well, I'm sure you bought something from his company.
Okay, where to start? Well, yeah, I was did have the privilege of managing MBJ for a few years, and I don't know what to say except Mr. Impressive was a great horse. He was an impressive horse. He had a lot of good foals, and I will say this, talking about Jackie B, some of the best ones he had was out of Jackie B mares. And so it worked out real well there. But it was a good horse. They had a great operation in Wichita. They spent a lot of money on advertising. The Rounds kids, Mrs. Rounds kids showed a lot. And of course, we showed the horses a lot throughout the country. And then later on, I hired a good Kansas boy, Bruce Walquist, to kind of take the show horse thing and later on to manage it. So he went ahead, and I had enough of my own stuff to do besides that. And let's see, what else was it?
Yeah, your Western heritage adventure.
Oh, yeah, well, I was trying to find, I've been involved in a lot of businesses. I mean, I've been a corporate pilot, and I was had some bought and sold some motels and one thing and another, and I was trying to figure out something else to get into, and somebody mentioned about wholesale tack business. So in 1989, I guess it was, well, I started to hiring to get some bridles built and some headstalls and breast collars and one thing and another, and I made the decision to use nothing, only first quality leather to do this with, and we built up, and it started out, and we had put stuff in the back of a car and started calling on dealers in Kansas and going to a few trade shows and one thing and another, and it kind of exploded, I guess I should say. And when I sold it out in 1999, we were selling stuff in 47 states and in 5 different foreign countries. So it turned out real good, and that's about all I can say about it. I mean, we tried to build good products, but there's been a few used them, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Denny,
Yes.
you've been quiet way too long.
Yeah, I went to sleep.
Okay. You mentioned your book that you wrote on the halter horse. We know that you've shown some of the greatest halter horses there were, and you've won the biggest.
I feel like I did, yes.
The biggest shows that there is to win. Tell us a little bit about some of those horses, and tell us a little bit about the halter horse world.
Well, back when I started out in the horse deal and got into it full tilt and everything, back like Duane was talking about, we rode every horse in the barn. We showed the ones that was good enough under saddle. We would show them, but we broke every horse, whether they was halter bred, performance bred, or what. They was all broke to a saddle, and we did that for years. And then they started specializing the pleasure horse, the halter horse, and this stuff like that. And then we started, but we always broke everything. And but the book we come out with this book, and I wanted a book that I wanted to show people our program, how we started from scratch to finish. And we got everything in there. We got veterinaries in there showing how to give a shot, how to do this and do that, and it's been very successful. And like I say, some of the horses I feel like that I showed was mostly impressive bred horses, and I made 7 of them make UHA champions, and a lot of people didn't think they'd ever ride, and they did ride, and some of them didn't ride. But anyway, and I felt like in the halter industry and everything, today it's such a specialized thing and everything that they want a different style of horse. They want one that's bored back, good shoulder, deep in heart, big hind leg, big front end. And for the riding horses that they have today, they're not built to move like what they want them to move. So that's why we got halter horses, we got the riding horses and everything. And the market on the halter horse, if you got one to go out there and win, it's still really, really good. But if they don't, you have a hard time trying to get a person interested in doing it, in the shows and everything. But I feel like some of the studs that we showed and everything, they turned out to be really, really top horses, and I feel honored to be able to show them for the people, and the customers send them to me and everything.
Has the performance halter horse classes that they've added the last few years, has that affected the halter business or the performance business, or has that been a bridge between the two? Or
It's been good at a lot of places. If you get where, like your ropers, you get there, or you get where they got a lot of the performance, the pleasure horses and stuff, it's really, really good. Going to the weekend horse shows, some of the classes, they won't be very big. They won't be much bigger than a regular show, but if you go to certain states like Nebraska, places where they have roping and everything, the ropers, they're trying to get points, and also you'll have some nice classes and everything. But other than that, just to go to a regular weekend horse show with no roping or anything like that, or cow horse or anything like that, they don't get in very often. It's pretty small. But just a minute. Also, but you go to the big shows and everything, like the world shows and stuff like that, there'll be 25, 30 head in the performance classes, so they're showing different places,
Buddy sparked a question out here. I'd like to ask each of you, and I know it's impossible to pinpoint anyone, but I'd like to know if there's some part of your career that is the high point of your career. The AQHA Hall of Fame, winning all the world classes, winning the reining horse derby, race horses, entrepreneurial. I'll start with you, Duane. Do you have anything that you can kind of say, hey, this is one of my highlights of my horse career?
Well, I would have to start out with highlight. Depending on where I start.
That's a toughie, I know.
I could start when I was born with a love for horses. My dad was a horseman, and my mother had ridden when, I remember telling us one time she rode from Cornero to Ellsworth, it's 10 miles for it to go to a movie. And that's how she got around. She loved horses. She rode horses. So I guess I was born that way. But highlights, there's so many of them. I guess I'd have to start in the horse world. In the horse world, of course, I was very excited when I was able to buy that pretty little roan filly, and with no idea that she would be a AQHA champion. I did not have that in mind. She just was pretty and a nice filly, and was going to make a good 4-H horse project, which she did. But then, of course, I have to go to Jackie B, and there's several stories on how I acquired the mares, but that'd take till dinner time this evening, and nobody's going to stay that long. Was when I was able to get Jackie B, and another thing that's interesting about Jackie B was I had offered this man, I think he wanted $1,500 for him when he was a baby, and I told him, yeah, I would do that. Then he decided he didn't want to sell him, and $1,500 is what the price is. It had been pretty well established, but he finally wound up, he had several other horses he wanted me to take and give him $1,500 for Jackie B, and I said, I just don't want those other horses. I'd have been smart if I'd have bought them, sent them to cow sale, and got the horse. But anyway, finally, I called him one night and told him I was going to Denver to the stock show, and there was a horse in that sale that I was interested in, and there was. And I don't remember what he was, but he was a 4/6 bred horse, and I told him there's a chance I'll buy that horse. My bid's, when I leave town, the bid's off. And he said he was going to sell him to me. So we made the deal. I wrote him a check for $1,500. Went into the bank after I got back from Denver. I told him he better hold that check for a few days. and I got back from Denver, and I didn't have $1,500. I went in and told my friend. Well, I developed a close friendship with the man that used to manage the elevator. He had gone into the bank, and we continued our friendship and business dealings together, one thing and another, most on cattle. But I said, I need to borrow $1,500. What'd you do with this $1,500, Duane? I said, well, I wrote Glenn Davis a check for $1,500 for his gray stud. Well, he said, I cannot loan you $1,500 on a horse. He said the bank examiners say horses are worth about 4 cents a pound. And unless he's huge, I can't do it. And it was true. Slaughter horses at that time were worth about 4 cents a pound. And he said, well, you got some cattle. And I said, yeah, I got some cattle, and you got them on a note. he said, I got some. So that's the way I bought him, was on the banker's cattle. And by golly, I did get that note paid off. I did. But he'd have to be the highlight of my life, and probably the lowest spot when I lost him. But gosh, what a life he had, and what he did. I could have never ever asked or expected, or you know what I'm trying to say. There was no way he was supposed to do that, but he did.
They say that a big portion of questions are some statement in disguise. My answer that I kind of expected you to mention was, I believe that you and Jackie B were inducted into the AQHA Hall of Fame at the same time.
That's correct.
And I would say that was a pretty good highlight also.
Yeah.
I will have to say that Duane and I go back further than any of these. I was a student at K-State in vet school in 3 or 4, and it might have been 65. But anyway, this guy comes into the vet school with 2 of the most beautiful horses I'd ever seen in my life. And it was Frosty Money and T.J. Rusty. Duane brought them down for something. I don't remember what it was. but I didn't know how any one man could own two beautiful horses like that at the same time. So, Denny, can you expound on what might be some of your highlights or something?
Well, I got several. I feel like I had highlights, but two of the great ones that I can remember real well is the year that I and my wife, Dana, rode Peppy Boy 2 at the All-American Quarter Horse Congress in the versatility, and we won it up there that year. And then also the year at the World Show that we won the World with Spanish Array, and Hank Wieskamp stood in the picture with us there and everything, and that was quite a highlight there. And I got several others. Every time I could go and won something, it was a highlight on that part.
Brent?
Well, I don't know. I guess I'd have to say that I had a little chestnut stud that was in 2001, I think. But anyway, all summer long, he was a nice little horse to ride and kind of fun. But I thought, he's going to be okay, but he's nothing too special. And Jan kept saying, yeah, that's a good one. She likes him. So I started hauling him a little bit that fall. I took him to the Congress fraternity, and he tied to win the Congress fraternity. And I thought, well, maybe he's all right. And so I took him to the NRHA fraternity, and he ended up tying to win the reining fraternity. And I lost it in a runoff. But it was still, I'd say that was kind of the highlight. But the horse came back the next spring, and he won the Derby. He tied to win the Derby with Tim McQuaid, and then we had a runoff, and we ended up winning the runoff that time. And he was reserve champion at the NRBC Classic, or NRBC show at Houston, the National Reining Breeders' Classic. He was reserve champion there, so he was the highest money earning horse in the NRHA at that time, and so I guess he'd probably highlight.
That'd be a pretty high highlight.
Yeah.
CA, what do you?
Thank you.
Yes, you're looking at the elite of the reining horse industry. CA, what might you come up with?
How far did we go back?
As far as you want to.
Well, I'll tell you what, it has to do with horses, but in 1952, I think it was, I had won the college championship roping. I was from Woodward, Oklahoma, and there was a lady that some of you might know, by the name of Dixie Rigger, that won the Girls GR, Girls Rodeo Association roping for the year. And a bunch of people we was both from the same town, a bunch of people got together and decided we have a match roping. Roped 10 head calves apiece. Now then, Dixie just didn't miss anything. But anyway, I did end up beating her, but now then, if some of you gentlemen here to think about it, I never had so much pressure doing anything in my life, in my whole career of anything, regardless what the pressure was. That was the most pressure I'd ever had on me. I thought that was it. I was roping a girl in a mass roping. So I'm good. I survived, but no, I've had a lot of good horses and a lot of things, and I think that if we sit here and you look out, here's these gentlemen, and they're great people. Stan, Carl, some of you, the rest of them out there are real good friends. That, to me, is just takes the cake of everything, just being acquainted with you. Ernie.
Yes, the Kansas Quarter Horse Association has been fortunate to have all of you guys involved with it. We have any more questions? Yes, Justin.
I guess I would ask you, are there anything about those horse showing days of the late 50s, the 60s, through the 70s that you might miss today and wish you could reincorporate in the industry going forward?
Yeah, I would. I wish we was back at the same time of showing the horse, and we'd take them in there at the show and show them in 3 or 4 classes that day, and try to do good with them, and it would be the same horse and wasn't specialized. That That's just the way I feel about it.
Something else that I think it's catching on today is this versatility ranch horse competition, and we've gone to a few of them, and they're really a lot of fun. I mean, we saddle one horse and one brush, and you show all day. I mean, not all day, but there's about 5 events, and it's fun. And I think
All they need.
yeah, but I think it's kind of a little bit of the old, brings back a little bit of the old time stuff. But.
Like Brent said, the ranch class has brought back like the horses back in the 50s and the 60s and 70s like that, more so than what they were before. A lot of the shows, the Western pleasure classes, they've just dropped down to 3 and 4 to a class on the weekend horse shows and stuff like that, and bringing back in the Western horse, again, like they used to, has built the classes back up and everything. And a lot of the people don't have to spend $25,000 for a saddle or all that stuff you're doing. And I think it'll keep the shows alive, where the others are just dying away, because the people that's going to a lot of the shows anymore is going to the NSBAs where they got added money and things like that, and they're not carrying that much for the weekend shows, where this other has brought it back more.
How do you feel about you just covered part of it, the versatility classes and all-around classes, hadn't that added quite a lot of strength to it, getting back to our roots, maybe?
I don't think it has as much as the ranch horse classes have and everything. No, I think.
And that's included in what I meant.
The versatility and stuff still is helped a bunch, but the ranch horse classes and that and everything has brought the shows back to reality, to where they used to be.
Hey guys, have a question to show how times have changed. What did you pay for your first new pickup and truck?
I bought a brand new Ford, gave $5,000 for it, a 3-ton, and I pulled a bumper pull pickup, or a bumper pull trailer. And that was in, I think, 1970.
I'd add one thing to that. My first truck I paid $3,000 for, and the vet body that I put on the back of it was $3,500. That was in '69. And now the truck would cost $65,000, $70,000, and the vet body would be, I don't know what they are, $10,000, $12,000. So the vet bodies haven't changed much, but boy, the vehicles have changed. Yes, Bob? Yep, things are a little different. Yes, Linda.
I was talking to some of the young girls on the Cofer equestrian team, and I guess the thing I think about these young girls, because I'm an old girl now, I would give anything to go back to times where I would have had you guys in my life, and the training that we have available for these young girls and young men to learn now. How do you guys feel about the change in and how the horsemanship and the natural horsemanship has made a difference with some of the horses today?
I'll let you.
What are the training? What's the knowledge level out there for people getting started in the horse world now, and people when you guys getting started? Videotapes, trainers, knowledge, so forth. What's the comparison 50 years ago and now, or 40 years ago?
Go ahead, Denny.
Back when I started, I just started riding and tried to learn the best way I knew how. Today, most of your people that are trying to learn, they've got people helping them, or they send a horse off and they put their clothes on and they come to the horse show and step up on it and they ride and then they go back home.
Yeah, it was a lot of trial and error when I started. I mean, it was about all. And they brought me when I said, this is going to be an experiment, because, and they all work, because they're all different. But there's stuff that you see today, the information that's out there is just unbelievable. I mean, maybe it's not all great information. I see some of the information out there maybe you want to kind of pass over, but there's a lot of good things that could have saved me a lot of heartaches along the way. We had maybe the knowledge out there. We didn't have people like Chris Cox coming to do open seminars like we have now to give us some of that knowledge and everything.
One of the things too today, over what you asked, that question you asked and everything, they've changed the way the horse moves anymore than what they used to years ago. You know, pleasure, your trail horses, all your events are rode different, and the horses move and they're built different and things like that. So I mean, if you're not a little bit talented yourself to go ahead and get one started, then you're going to have help, because we don't get on one anymore and drop his head down and let him trot off and lope off. We got to do some other things.
Brett, and maybe to you guys that are in the reining horse and the cutting horse industry, what really impressed me in 1959, I was at the Houston Livestock Show. That lady took her head stall off that horse, and she won the cutting contest. So, are we getting more and more women there doing this? I hope so, because
There's a lot of women in the, showing reining horses, and not just in the non-pro division, but in the opens. There's a lot of women trainers out there, and the cutting too, I think.
She took the head stall off that horse there at the national show in Houston in 1959, and she won the contest. So, they can do it too.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else anybody would like to? Yes.
First of all, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to be here. I've looked forward to it since I saw it advertised. I'm not very good at talking in one of these, but in your time in the industry, we all learn lessons in dealing with horses. What would be one of the most valuable lessons that you learned that you wish you would have learned perhaps earlier that would have made it easier?
I might give you one thing I learned, primarily from the horse: patience.
How's that for a distinct answer? Anything else?
There's so many things I wished I'd learned earlier on, but I don't even know where to start. I mean, just don't.
Yes, Duane.
I want to go back to Justin's question about the cost of a truck. And that transportation is one thing that has changed quite a bit. When we started showing, all I had was a half-ton pickup with a stalk rack on it. And by golly, that's the way we went. We could take a mare and colt or a couple of yearlings or whatever, but then it didn't get, it wasn't big enough. So I bought a truck here in town that they delivered 7-Up with it. It'd been on the highway, it was a pop truck. I bought it and put a stock rack, put a bed on it with the stock rack and bows over it, and did cover it, put a tarp over it and stuff. I thought, man, we're in pretty good shape here. We got all 2 mares and colts and all stud up front and younger horses in between and get along fine. We could haul several horses to the horse shows. And we did that. And come winter, we was doing pretty good. I think it's when Frosty was a 3-year-old. Rusty was 2. Then we had a filly we called Subar that was by Barcliff that was a yearling, and we had a yearling stud and a 2-year-old gelding. We had 5 horses that we were showing, and we decided to go to Denver. We'd been to Denver at the stock show, but not showing any horses, so we decided to go. And I never give it a thought, but what you couldn't haul show horses in a cattle truck, a stock truck. So, and we had our old stall blankets sewed over. The horses had a nice blanket on them, but the old stall blanket sewed on them, and dirty. And you know how you fix one of them is whatever's closest, a piece of baling wire or baling twine. And so we loaded our 5 horses and went to Denver to the stock show. And I got out there, and one reason I wanted to go was Hugh Bennett, the old cowboy, was going to judge it. And I thought, them guys, when we went to Oklahoma There's cowboys down there judging, and they liked our horses. And I thought I'd see what Hugh Bennett thought of them. He had raised some good horses. And we got out there and we found Hugh had been hurt or was ill. I don't remember which, but anyway, I was let down. Shoot, here I am in Denver with these horses, and I don't know this guy that's going to judge. And it turned out that they got Jack Brainerd to show. And so we had, like everybody else was pulling by that time, that would have been in '66, pulling pretty nice trailer and different equipment, of course, than what we see today. But anyway, it stepped up. We had to find a load and chute so we could unload well and lead them horses off there with dirty blankets on them and stuff. I didn't know how that was all going to work. But by time to show them, I had a fellow working for me that was good with them halter horses. And George Taves, some of you knew George. And we showed him. And when we left there, I think we had 5 horses. And we showed in 6 classes. They had a group class, get a sire. And I think we won 4 of those classes and had 2 seconds. And I still, after that, I thought, well, we can get by with them dirty blankets. That worked that old truck. But in '69, Stan will remember, International Harvester was making that ton truck with 4 doors. And I bought a new International Harvester 4-door truck and a 24-foot trailer. Hail. That was my price range. And we rigged it up. So that's how we done our horse show on that. And it's amazing to me. The cost of that new truck, to be honest with you, I don't remember. But I think the truck and the trailer was, $8,000 or $9,000. I think that's probably what it was. But it's changed. It's changed. You look around now, we have the kids' rodeos there, a series of them throughout the year there in Canton. And I can't believe, big old diesel tractors pulling trucks and hauling 5 or 6 horses, pulling trailers. It's just hard to believe if you started out with a pickup truck and now you see what there is. It's just hard to believe, and hard to believe what some of those rigs cost. And but it's interesting that the horse industry has attracted that kind of money and that kind of people that have an interest in wanting our horses and wanting to do right. Some of them, they got the money and they can pick the horse they want, but you're right about the education. We're short there with a lot of. They just need help. They want to do well. And like Chris, if they could just have more time with he and several others. There's several others now. I think the good horsemanship has trickled down to where we're doing a better job probably than we ever have. But it's still, if you want to get a child started with a horse, it's find somebody's old broke horse that they're done with or retired or something and learn to ride, learn to kind of appreciate your horse and then move up from there. Not start out with a colt. And that's what we've seen here with the horse they brought in for Chris. Chris Cox, yeah. They started with young horses that they couldn't handle, couldn't get along with.
Of course, you know the influence of Ray Hunt and the proteges of that era. And Chris Cox has some connection there. Duane had Ray at his ranch several times. They were good friends. And Ray gave some demonstrations. His influence continues, through all the horsemen today. Anything else before we call this to an end today? Yes, Gordon.
The only thing I'd like to say is the amount of integrity up there is unbelievable.
That's all right.
That's what they all have in common.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think with that note, Justin, Justine, everybody, we will conclude this. I'm sure these guys will be around to talk to you individually if you'd like. We appreciate all of you coming, and enjoy the rest of the Equifest here in Salina.